Chapter 49. Hwan, Chul and Rielle are getting married. After Mrs. Kalma saw the film clips about her daughters getting wet in the rain and Hwan Chul's random behavior, she felt dismayed at Hwan Chul. That young man, I trusted him with my daughter only to make a fool out of Rielle. What does he think of my baby? Naive to get easily fooled. Her angry tone awakened Rielle, and Zia quickly closed the video. Rielle rose with her hand rubbing her eyes. She asked, "What was that noise all about? Why are you getting angry, Mom?" "That was nothing, dear. It was my reaction to the movie that Zia and I saw on TV," Mrs. Kalma replied in a nervous tone. Rielle smiled and said, "What movie is that? May I see?" With eyes partially closed, she looked at the TV monitor then added, "But you already closed it." "Yes, because it ended already." Mrs. Kalma changed the subject instantly and said, "Hwan called, but you were still asleep. So he said he'd call again, hoping you would wake up on his next call." With a pouted face, Rielle said, "You should have woken me up." "I missed my babe," Zia teased. "You were sleeping like a baby. Why should we wake you up?" "He said he'd call again, so stop acting like one." Rielle made a teasing face at Zia and hugged her mom affectionately. "I love you, Mom dearest." Mrs. Kalma hugged Rielle, and at the back of her mind, she couldn't let that scene of Hwan Chul flirting with a girl pass that quickly. She also felt hurt for her girl taken for granted while in a relationship. She regretted forgiving him when he was dishonest all along and was also the reason why her daughter met a fatal accident and losing her memory. Rielle went to her bedroom to sleep while Mrs. Kalma and Zia were alone in the living room. "I don't want him getting close to Rielle again, Zia. I might forget my sanity that I could hurt him physically," Mrs. Kalma said furiously. "Mom, take it easy. We must be quiet because Hwan Chul could be the key to Rielle's amnesia. He won't hurt her this time, and I could see he was desperate to have Rielle back to him again," Zia explained calmly. "But what if Rielle fell in love with him again?" Mrs. Kalma was fearful. "If that happens, Mom, that video will wake Rielle's consciousness. That will be the chance to show what happened to both of them, and that will jolt Rielle's buried memory to wake," said Zia confidently. Mrs. Kalma was restless and wanted to know why and how this video was taken and landed in Rielle's hands. The following day, while Rielle was showering, Mrs. Kalma told Zia and Donna that she wanted to see Nancy. "I have to talk to Nancy and find out who took that video and how it came to Rielle's hands." Mrs. Kalma dialed Hwan's number. "Hwan, this is Mrs. Kalma. Have I bothered you?" she asked. "No, ma'am. What is the pleasure of this call?" "I need to know Nancy's number. It is urgent." "How urgent, ma'am?" "I could be of help. I don't know if this is a proper thing to ask of you, but there's something in a video that bothered me." Hwan cut in Mrs. Kalma's words. "It was a video that Wilson gave to Rielle." "Am I right, ma'am? Who is Wilson?" asked Mrs. Kalma curiously. "Wilson is Nancy's husband, and they were Rielle's friends since high school," said Hwan. "I am bothered about this video." Hwan cut in Mrs. Kalma's words. "I am willing to help." "That's better, then. When could you come to see me?" "I also would like to see Nancy and talk to her personally," Mrs. Kalma requested. "I am home from my business trip and on my way to the office, and I can fetch Nancy instead so we can come together, ma'am," Hwan offered. Later that day, Hwan, Nancy, Mrs. Kalma and the two sisters of Rielle were in the living room watching on TV the video that Rielle left plugged in on the TV's USB port. As usual, Hwan translated the conversation between Hwan Chul and Chunhae, which angered the Kalma family. And when Nancy clicked the following clip about Mari, Mrs. Kalma was already crying. "I have trusted Hwan Chul so much and even told him to care for Mari and not hurt her. But look what he did to my daughter." Yet Mari continued to love him to the extent of almost losing her life because of him. Having seen the documented film report of Wilson about the fatal accident, seeing them both bathing in blood, Mrs. Kalma almost had a breakdown. Everything about the past accident enlivened Mrs. Kalma's memory, and she couldn't help getting angry at Hwan Chul again. Nancy calmed Mrs. Kalma then said, "You have to calm yourself, ma'am. It wouldn't help if you reprimanded Hwan Chul at this time because Rielle seemed to be coming out of her darkness, and it would only make Rielle confused and frightened that it may traumatize her more. We couldn't do anything but to wait. Rielle seemed to get farther away from me, but I couldn't do anything because her behavior was so sudden. She woke up and took me for granted, and there she was, chasing over Hwan Chul. I couldn't understand how so sudden Rielle's change of heart towards you," Hwan said Nancy sadly. Maybe her sweet memories with Hwan Chul roused her heart so she couldn't contain it. The passage of time and her memory suddenly reconnected their broken relationship, She was suddenly excited when she remembered their pasts, as if she didn't want to leave or lose her hold on him. It sounds tragic, right? And that was my fear, tragic for me. What if Rielle doesn't want to let go of Hwan Chul anymore? Hwan became silent, and Nancy felt his pain. Several days have passed. Rielle and Hwan Chul were getting better in their relationship. Rielle sidestepped Hwan completely, and her focus was on Hwan Chul, making up for the lost time. One night, when Hwan Chul happened cross paths with Hwan, they stood over their home's wine bar counter. Hwan Chul approached him and said something that stunned Hwan. "I'm sorry to break this news to you, Hyung, but Mari and I decided to marry as soon as possible." Hwan coughed out the wine he was sipping and looked at Hwan Chul severely. "How did this happen, Hwan? You and Rielle? Don't make me laugh," Hwan blurted in sarcasm. But it was true. "Remember, we planned to elope years ago, and Mari remembered it. So, she told me that instead of eloping, why not marry her so her family could witness our grand wedding? So, I agreed." Hwan was silent momentarily, his fists clenched and shaking. Hwan Chul continued, "I will ask for her hand this week, Hyung, and there's no stopping our plan to get married." "Does she know why she had that fatal accident with you?" Hwan Chul was stunned by Hwan's question. "Now, you couldn't speak. Why not tell her about that so it would be fair that she knew before taking that vow? Would that be a threat to your marriage to her? Why that sudden fear I can see now on your face? Huh? Tell her, Hwan. Can't you be honest with her once? Damn it, Hwan, tell her." Hwan wouldn't bog down from his challenge to his brother, and he kept prodding at him to be honest with her. "Why are you doing this to me, Hyun? Couldn't you accept defeat? Why couldn't you be happy for me? Huh?" And it was true. We both love Gabrielle, but I was first in her life and will be her last. Face and accept the truth. Hwan hit him on the face and spoke. "If you insist on marrying her without telling her what happened to the two of you, do you think you will have a happy life together? Her recovery is still raw. Hwan, wake her up so she won't have a miserable life with you. And if she still chooses you, I'll leave, entirely away from both of you, and you shall never see or hear from me again." Hwan angrily threw the glass of wine on the floor and walked away from Hwan Chul, pushing Hwan Chul's shoulder with his. New Year's Day celebration is fast approaching. Hwan Chul and Rielle were seriously discussing their wedding plans. "Let us get married first civilly," suggested Rielle to Hwan Chul. Hwan Chul felt more than delighted because their marriage would come earlier through a civil wedding, and even if they got married in the church, Rielle was already his wife, and no one could contest that, not even Hwan. "If that's what you want, let us do it," Hwan Chul agreed. "If you wish, I could talk to your mom tonight so we can marry on Saturday. I will ask the mayor or a judge to marry us. Then we can go to Hong Kong," Rielle chimes in. Those words you said seemed to ring a bell to me. Did you say that to me, or was it Hwan? Hwan Chul was silent and got a little jittery. "Well, it doesn't matter. So Hong Kong is the place for our honeymoon?" asked Rielle excitedly. Hwan Chul gave out a silent heave of relief. "Yes, we'll be there on New Year's, a festive day for our honeymoon," Hwan remarked happily. "Now that we've made our plan, I want to speak with Hwan privately. Will that be all right with you?" Rielle asked his permission. Hwan Chul touched her chin and said, "It's all right with me. Just don't change your mind about us," kidded Hwan Chul. Rielle stepped inside Hwan-ki's office and knocked to inform him of her presence. Hwan-ki stood and stared at Rielle for the longest time. Both were silent. Rielle looked down to move her sight away from him. She couldn't stand the gloomy face of Hwan, and Rielle felt a stabbing prick in her heart, making her body weak and numb. It had been a painful and agonizing parting between Hwan-ki and Rielle. A real goodbye between a once beautiful love affair. But is this the actual ending of Rielle's love for Hwan-ki? Keep following me on my YouTube channel and TikTok. Take advantage of more exciting episodes in the Windows of the Heart series.